Commander Susan Moore stood at the wide window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the stars. Her dark blue uniform fit her tall frame perfectly, its silver insignia catching the light as she turned toward the flashing alert on her console. "Commander, we've detected an unknown vessel entering the solar system," said Officer Frank Wells, his fingers moving quickly across the control panel. "It's not following any known flight pattern." Susan's face remained calm, though her eyes narrowed slightly. "Trajectory. Direct approach to Earth, but it's just one ship, ma'am. Small. Definitely not a warship." She nodded. "Open a channel when they're in range." Within 20 minutes, the strange ship had reached communication distance. The main screen flickered and revealed a being with pale blue skin, large silver eyes, and a narrow face. Small breathing tubes connected to its nose, and it wore what looked like a formal robe with strange symbols. "I am Ambassador Zixtar of the Galactic Confederation," the alien said, its voice translated through the computer. "I come with urgent news. Earth is in grave danger." Susan stepped forward. "Commander Susan Moore of Earth Defense Fleet. We welcome you, Ambassador. What kind of danger are you referring to?" "The Draxid Empire has set their sights on your world. They will arrive within 3 of your weeks with an invasion force. I have been sent to warn you and offer evacuation assistance for your leadership and genetic samples of your species." Several officers exchanged worried glances, but Susan's expression didn't change. "Thank you for the warning, Ambassador. We would like to invite you to meet with our United Earth Council to discuss this threat. Can you dock with our station?" The alien looked surprised but agreed. 2 hours later, Ambassador Zixtar sat in the council chamber, surrounded by 12 human representatives from different regions of Earth. Susan stood near the wall, watching. Council President Laura Dias spoke first. "Ambassador, we appreciate your warning about the Draxid Empire. Can you tell us more about their capabilities? They are a warrior race that has conquered 17 worlds in the last century. Their ships are heavily armed, their soldiers ruthless. No world has ever repelled a full-scale Draxid invasion." Laura nodded calmly. "I see. And what does the Galactic Confederation plan to do about this?" The ambassador's silver eyes blinked rapidly. "We cannot directly interfere. The Confederation maintains a position of armed neutrality with the Draxid. That is why I came to offer evacuation assistance. Perhaps 1,000 of your people could be relocated to—" "That won't be necessary," Laura interrupted gently. "We've already detected the Draxid fleet 6 months ago. Our deep space monitoring stations picked up their communications." Zixtar's mouth opened slightly. "You know they are coming?" "Yes. We've been preparing since we confirmed their trajectory toward Earth." The alien stood suddenly. "This is impossible. Their communications are encrypted using quantum technology beyond your development level." Susan stepped forward. "Not as far beyond as they might think. We've had quantum computing for almost 15 years now. But if you know, why haven't you begun evacuations? The Draxid will arrive with over 200 warships." Laura smiled. 217 ships, to be exact, including their command carrier. Zixtar looked around the room, seeing the calm faces of the human leaders. "You should be panicking. Most species collapse into chaos when they learn of a Draxid invasion." "We're not most species," Susan replied with a slight smile. The council president stood. "Ambassador, we would like to invite you to stay and observe our defense preparations. Perhaps the Confederation might be interested in our approach." "What approach? What could you possibly do against the Draxid? They have never been defeated." Laura exchanged a glance with Susan before turning back to the increasingly agitated alien. "Then they've never faced humans before. Commander Moore will show you to guest quarters and provide you with access to our defense briefings." As Susan led the stunned ambassador from the council chamber, he kept shaking his head. "This is madness. Complete madness." "Perhaps," Susan replied. "But sometimes madness is exactly what's needed when the odds seem impossible." The next morning, Ambassador Zix Tar followed Susan through the bustling halls of Earth Defense Headquarters. Humans in various uniforms rushed past them, carrying data pads and equipment. Despite the looming invasion, no one showed signs of panic. "Your people seem remarkably calm," Zix Tar observed. Susan nodded. "We've had time to process the threat. Now we're focused on the solution." They entered a large room where a three-dimensional map of the solar system glowed in the center. A man with gray hair and the rank of general stood studying it. "Ambassador, this is General Alan Carter, our chief military strategist," Susan said. Alan turned and offered his hand. After a moment of hesitation, Zix Tar extended his three-fingered hand for a brief shake. "I understand you're here to witness our defense preparations," Alan said. "I'm about to brief my officers on our final battle plan. You're welcome to observe." Soon the room filled with military personnel. Zix Tar sat beside Susan as Alan began his presentation. "The Draxid will enter our solar system from this vector," Alan explained, pointing to a red line cutting through the map. "Based on their previous invasions, they'll proceed directly to Earth, ignoring all other planetary bodies." Zix Tar nodded in agreement. "Their confidence will be their downfall," Alan continued. "We've positioned our fleet in these locations." Blue dots appeared throughout the solar system. Most are disguised as commercial vessels or hidden behind moons and in asteroid fields. "You plan to ambush them?" Zix Tar asked. "Yes, but timing is crucial. We'll allow them into the inner solar system, here." Alan pointed to the area between Mars and Earth. "Then we spring the trap." Zix Tar's silver eyes widened. "You're letting them get that close to your planet. This is madness." "A calculated risk," Alan corrected. "We've studied their tactics. The Draxid follow the same invasion pattern every time. They're predictable." The map zoomed in, showing details of Earth's orbit. "We've deployed 500 orbital defense platforms disguised as satellites," Alan explained. "They'll provide our first line of defense." 500? Zix Tar gasped. "The Confederation believed you had less than 50 military satellites." Susan smiled slightly. "We prefer to keep some capabilities private." A woman approached Alan and handed him a datapad. "The latest update from Lieutenant Joe Collins, sir. The quantum disruption field is ready for deployment." Alan nodded. "Excellent. This is our secret weapon, Ambassador. A quantum disruption field designed to disable Draxid technology." "Impossible," Zix Tar said. "Their systems are shielded against electronic warfare." "Traditional electronic warfare, yes," Susan agreed. "But we've developed something new based on the communications we intercepted." After the briefing, they walked to a large laboratory where dozens of engineers worked on strange devices. A young man with glasses looked up from his workstation. "Commander Moore, is this the alien ambassador?" he asked. "Yes. Ambassador, meet Lieutenant Joe Collins, the lead engineer on the quantum disruption project." Joe wiped his hands on his pants before offering one to Zix Tar. "Nice to meet you. Never shook hands with an alien before." "Your quantum disruption field," Zix Tar said. "How does it work?" Joe grinned. "It targets the specific frequency their quantum communications use. We can't block it completely, but we can create enough interference to temporarily disable their weapon systems." "For how long?" "About 20 minutes per burst, but that should be enough time to cause some serious damage." Zix Tar turned to Susan. 17 worlds have fallen to the Draxid. What makes you think Earth will be different?" "Those 17 worlds weren't us," Susan replied simply. Back in the command center, they watched as simulations ran on the main screen, showing different battle scenarios. In each one, Earth forces appeared to retreat, drawing the Draxid deeper into the solar system before surrounding them. "This strategy has a 67% success rate in our simulations," Alan explained. "And if it fails?" Zix Tar asked. Alan's face grew serious. "Then we move to Plan B." "Which is?" Susan and Alan exchanged glances. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Susan said quietly. 7 days passed quickly. Susan was assigned to captain the flagship Defender, while Ambassador Zixtar remained at Earth Command with General Alan Carter. The alien watched with growing concern as the red dots representing the Draxid fleet moved steadily closer to Earth. "They will arrive in 6 hours, Zixtar said, his voice tight with worry. Alan nodded, his face calm as he studied the display. "All ships are in position. The orbital platforms are armed and ready." On the main screen, a harsh face appeared. The creature had gray, scaled skin, sharp teeth, and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. A row of spikes ran from the top of its head down its back. "This is War Prince Crag of the Draxid Empire," the alien announced, its voice deep and threatening. "We claim this system and all resources within it. Surrender your planet now and your people will be permitted to live as servants. Resist, and you will be eliminated." President Laura Dias stepped forward to respond. She wore a simple blue suit, her gray hair pulled back neatly. "War Prince Crag, I am President Laura Dias of the United Earth Government. We are a peaceful people and wish to avoid conflict. Perhaps we can discuss terms that would benefit both our species." Zixtar looked shocked. "What is she doing? Is Earth surrendering?" Alan smiled slightly. "No, she's playing her part." On screen, War Prince Crag laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "There are no terms to discuss. You have 1 hour to begin your surrender process, or we attack." The screen went dark. "The standard Draxid approach," Zixtar said. "They always offer surrender before attacking. It saves them resources when species give up without a fight." "We're counting on them following their usual patterns," Alan replied. He tapped his communication device. "Commander Moore, are you ready?" Aboard the Defender, Susan sat in the captain's chair. Her crew worked efficiently around her, checking systems and preparing for battle. "Ready, General. First wave is moving into position now." The Defender led a group of 50 Earth ships out from their hiding place behind Earth's moon. They moved in a tight formation toward the approaching Draxid fleet. "Remember," Susan told her crew, "we need to make this look real. Our job is to engage briefly, then appear to retreat in disarray. The Draxid must believe they've scattered our main defense force." Her weapons officer, Steve Phillips, nodded. "The weapons are set to cause visible damage without critical hits, Commander." On the Draxid command ship, War Prince Crag watched the approaching Earth vessels with contempt. "Pathetic," he growled to his second-in-command. "Send the forward ships to eliminate them. Don't waste our main weapons." The battle began exactly as Earth had planned. Susan's ships fired their weapons, causing minor damage to several Draxid vessels. The Draxid responded with heavy fire, which the Earth ships evaded with practiced precision. After 10 minutes of exchange, Susan gave the signal. "Begin Phase 2, Scatter Pattern Delta." The Earth ships broke formation, appearing to flee in panic. The Draxid ships pursued eagerly, just as predicted. Back at Earth Command, Zixtar watched in horror. "Your ships are being routed. You must deploy your remaining forces now." "Not yet," Alan said calmly. "We need them to commit fully to the attack." As the Draxid fleet pushed forward, they failed to notice the small stealth vessels moving silently among them. These tiny ships, barely larger than shuttles, carry teams of engineers including Joe Collins. "We're in position," Joe reported over the secure channel, beginning attachment of quantum disruptors to target ships. The stealth vessels maneuvered carefully alongside the massive Draxid warships, attaching small devices to their hulls. The Draxid, focused on pursuing Susan's retreating forces, never detected them. 27% of targets tagged, Joe reported. Continuing mission. Susan led the Draxid deeper into the solar system, toward Mars. The red planet loomed ahead, and hidden behind it waited 200 more Earth ships. "They're taking the bait," Susan said to her crew. "Once they pass the Mars orbit line, we spring the trap." War Prince Crag watched with satisfaction as the Earth ships fled before his fleet. "These humans are no different from any other species we've conquered," he told his officers. "Weak and cowardly when faced with superior force." He had no idea just how wrong he was. As the last Draxid ship crossed the invisible line of Mars orbit, Susan gave the command everyone was waiting for. "Execute Operation Thunderbolt now," she ordered, her voice firm and clear. Joe Collins, aboard his stealth vessel, pressed the activation sequence on his tablet. All quantum disruptors activated. Interference waves spreading. Across the Draxid fleet, weapon systems suddenly went dark. Emergency alarms blared on their ships as power fluctuations rippled through their systems. On the Draxid command ship, War Prince Crag slammed his fist against his chair. "What is happening?" "Report." His technology officer worked frantically at the controls. "Unknown energy field disrupting our quantum systems. Weapons offline on 32% of our vessels. Communications degrading." "Impossible," Crag roared. "No species at this development level should have quantum interference technology." At that moment, Susan gave her next command. "All hidden forces, engage now." From behind Mars, from within the asteroid belt, and from positions near Earth's moon, hundreds of Earth ships suddenly appeared. They moved with perfect coordination, surrounding the confused Draxid fleet. At Earth Command, Ambassador Zix Tar stood with his mouth open in shock. "You hid your main fleet in plain sight. The Draxid scanners should have detected them." "Stealth technology," Alan explained. "We've been developing it for decades." The large display showed Earth forces quickly encircling the Draxid ships. With many enemy weapons disabled, the battle immediately shifted in Earth's favor. Susan directed her forces with precision. "Focus fire on the vessels with operational weapons first. Disable engines on the command ships." The Defender led a wing of 20 ships directly toward the heart of the Draxid formation. Their weapons fired in perfect synchronization, overwhelming the shields of a large Draxid battleship. War Prince Crag watched in growing rage as his supposedly invincible invasion force found itself trapped and vulnerable. "This is not possible. Retreat to defensive formation. Focus all remaining weapons on their flagship." Several Draxid ships turned their fire toward the Defender. Susan's ship shook as enemy blasts struck their shields. "Shields at 60%, reported Steve Phillips. "They're concentrating fire on us." Susan remained calm. "Evasive pattern Bravo. Continue pressing the attack." Joe Collins' voice came through the communication system. "Commander, the quantum disruption effect will only last about 20 minutes. We're at minute 14 now." "Understood," Susan replied. "All ships, maximize damage while we have the advantage." Earth vessels swarmed through the Draxid fleet like angry bees, firing precisely at engines, weapon systems, and command bridges. The Draxid ships, many still unable to use their weapons, tried to maneuver into a defensive formation. In Earth Command, Zixtar could hardly believe what he was seeing. "Your forces have already disabled 19 Draxid vessels. No species has ever done more than minor damage to a Draxid invasion fleet." General Allen smiled slightly. "We're just getting started." War Prince Crag, seeing his advantage slipping away, made a desperate decision. "Direct all operational ships to focus on Earth itself. If we can't win this battle conventionally, we'll force their surrender by threatening their planet." A group of 30 Draxid ships broke away from the main battle and accelerated toward Earth. Susan noticed immediately. "Defender to Earth Command. We have a group of hostiles heading directly for Earth. Request permission to pursue." Elen quickly assessed the situation. "Permission granted. Take your battle group and intercept. The orbital defense platforms will support you." "You still have more surprises?" Zixtar asked. "Always," Alan replied. "Those defense platforms I mentioned, they're not just defensive." As the Draxid ships approached Earth, hundreds of satellites that had appeared dormant suddenly activated, revealing powerful weapon systems that no one in the Galactic Confederation had suspected humans possessed. As the Draxid ships approached Earth, the orbital platforms revealed their true purpose. What had appeared to be simple communication satellites suddenly split open, revealing powerful energy weapons. They fired in unison, creating a web of deadly beams that caught the approaching Draxid vessels. Earth's defenses are engaging, Susan reported from the Defender as she led her battle group in pursuit. Looks like they didn't expect that. On his command ship, War Prince Crag watched in disbelief as the supposedly primitive Earth defense system destroyed 5 of his ships in less than a minute. How is this possible? He demanded. Our intelligence indicated minimal orbital defenses. Back at Earth Command, Ambassador Zixtar received an urgent message on his personal communication device. His blue face turned pale as he read it. Problem, Ambassador? Ellen asked, noticing the alien's distress. The Galactic Confederation Council has made a decision. Zixtar said quietly. They will not send aid to Earth. They believe engaging would only result in more losses. They're abandoning us. Ellen asked, his voice steady. They believe the situation is hopeless, Zixtar admitted shamefully. No species has ever survived a full Draxid invasion force. Ellen smiled. Well, they're missing quite a show. Just then, Joe Collins' voice came through on the command channel. Earth Command, this is Collins. The quantum disruption is wearing off. Draxid systems will be back online in about 2 minutes. Acknowledged, Allen replied. All ships, prepare for renewed enemy fire. But Joe wasn't finished. Sir, I've been analyzing the data. I think we can extend the disruption effect by modifying Earth's communication satellites to amplify the signal. Would that work? Zixtar asked. Theoretically, Joe said, but it would require perfect timing and would use up most of our remaining quantum disruptors. Susan's voice joined the conversation. We've engaged the Draxid ships heading for Earth. We can hold them, but when their weapons come back online, we'll be outgunned. Ellen made his decision quickly. Do it, Collins. How long do you need? 10 minutes to reprogram the satellites. Then we can release a disruption wave that should affect their entire fleet for about 15 minutes. Commander Moore, can you give him 10 minutes? Ellen asked. Aboard the Defender, Susan assessed the battle around her. Her ships were fighting well, but the Draxid vessels were larger and more heavily armored. When their weapons returned to full power, the fight would become much more difficult. We'll give you those 10 minutes, she promised. All ships, defensive formation Delta. Protect Earth at all costs. The Earth vessels formed a tight screen between the planet and the approaching Draxid ships. The space around them lit up with weapons fire as both sides engaged in close combat. Joe worked frantically, his fingers flying across his tablet as he reprogrammed the communication satellites. Accessing satellite control now. Beginning modifications. In Earth Command, Zixtar watched the battle with growing anxiety. Your ships are taking heavy damage. They'll hold, Allen said with confidence. On the main viewer, they could see the Defender taking multiple hits as it moved to intercept a large Draxid cruiser heading directly for Earth. Its shields flickered under the assault. Shield strength down to 30%, Steve reported on the Defender's bridge. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Susan held tight to her chair as the ship shook. Maintain position. We need to give Collins time to finish. Suddenly, the Draxid ship's weapons surged back to full power. The battle immediately intensified as Earth vessels began taking heavier damage. Collins, we're out of time, Allen said urgently. The Draxid weapons are back online. Almost there, Joe replied, his voice tense. Just need another minute. Susan watched as 3 Earth ships were destroyed in quick succession. Her jaw tightened. All remaining ships, concentrate fire on the lead Draxid vessel. We need to break their formation. The Defender fired all its weapons at once, focusing on a single target. Other Earth ships followed suit, their combined firepower finally breaking through the Draxid shields. "I've done it," Joe announced suddenly. "Initiating Protocol Omega now." Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of communication satellites simultaneously released a powerful quantum disruption wave that spread outward like a ripple in a pond. The quantum disruption wave spread rapidly through space, washing over the Draxid fleet like an invisible tide. Ship after ship suddenly lost power to their weapons and shields. Emergency lights flickered across their vessels as systems failed. In Earth Command, the tactical display showed nearly 70% of the Draxid fleet turning from threatening red to a harmless yellow as their offensive capabilities went offline. "It worked," Ellen exclaimed, allowing himself a rare smile. "Collins, you're a genius." Joe's tired voice came through the speakers. "The effect should last about 15 minutes this time. That's all we could manage." 15 minutes is all we need," Susan replied from the Defender. Her ship, though damaged, was still operational. "All Earth vessels, this is Commander Moore. The enemy is vulnerable. Focus your attacks on their command ships. Let's end this." Earth ships regrouped quickly and pressed their advantage, concentrating fire on the largest Draxid vessels. Without shields or weapons, the once mighty invasion force was suddenly defenseless. On the Draxid flagship, War Prince Crag roared in fury as his ship's systems failed around him. "What is happening? How can these primitives possess such technology?" His second-in-command, a scared Draxid named Vor, spoke quietly. "War Prince, we have lost control of 68% of our fleet. Our flagship's weapons and engines are offline. Perhaps we should consider." "Do not speak of retreat," Crag snarled. "The Draxid Empire does not retreat." "Sir," Vor persisted, "we are not facing a primitive species as our intelligence suggested. These humans have clearly hidden their true technological capabilities. This was a trap from the beginning." On the main viewer, they watched as another Draxid cruiser exploded under concentrated Earth fire. Back on the Defender, Susan coordinated the counterattack. Her ships moved with precision, targeting the most dangerous Draxid vessels first. "Commander," Steve reported, "we've disabled or destroyed nearly 40% of the enemy fleet. The rest are trying to regroup around their flagship." Susan studied the tactical display. "Target the flagship. If we can capture War Prince Crag, we might end this battle without further bloodshed." The Defender, accompanied by 6 other Earth vessels, changed course toward the massive Draxid command ship. In Earth Command, Ambassador Zixtar watched in amazement. "I can hardly believe what I'm seeing. Your forces have suffered only 22% casualties, while inflicting over 60% on the Draxid." "We don't fight fair," Alan explained. "We fight to win." Zixtar nodded slowly. "So I see. The Confederation has seriously underestimated humanity." On the main screen, they watched as Susan's battle group surrounded the Draxid flagship. With its weapons disabled, the massive ship could only drift helplessly as Earth vessels took position around it. "This is Commander Susan Moore of Earth Defense Fleet." Susan broadcast on all frequencies. "War Prince Crag, your weapons are disabled. Your fleet is in disarray. Surrender now, and we will spare the lives of your crew." After a long pause, War Prince Crag's face appeared on the screen. His yellow eyes burned with fury. "You think this victory means anything, human? The Empire will send 10 fleets to avenge this defeat. Your planet will be reduced to ash." Susan remained calm. "Perhaps, but first, they'll need to learn what happened to your invincible armada. I repeat my offer. Surrender now, and we'll spare your crews." Crag bared his sharp teeth in defiance. "The Draxid do not surrender." "Then we have nothing more to discuss," Susan replied. She turned to Steve. "Target their engine core. Prepare to fire." "Wait." A new voice broke in. It was Vor, the second-in-command. "War Prince Crag no longer speaks for the fleet. I am taking command, as is my right under Draxid military law, when a leader endangers the fleet through poor judgment." Crag roared in outrage, but two Draxid officers moved to restrain him. Commander Moore, Vor continued, I wish to discuss terms of surrender. Susan nodded. A wise decision. Cease all resistance and prepare to receive boarding parties. As Earth forces secured the remaining Draxid ships, Ambassador Zixtar turned to Alan. What happens now? Now, Alan replied, we begin peace negotiations. 3 days after the battle, negotiations began aboard the Defender. The ship's conference room had been prepared for this historic meeting. The Earth delegation consisted of Susan, Joe Collins, and several government officials. Ambassador Zixtar attended as a neutral observer. Across the table sat Vor, acting commander of the Draxid forces, along with 3 other Draxid officers. War Prince Crag had been confined to quarters under guard. President Laura Dias opened the meeting with a calm, measured tone. We are here to discuss terms for the withdrawal of all Draxid forces from Earth space. Vor, his scaled face difficult for humans to read, nodded slightly. The Empire has never before negotiated after a failed conquest. This is unusual for us. There's a first time for everything, Susan said. Vor focused his yellow eyes on her. You commanded the Earth forces well, Commander Moore. The Empire would value such tactical thinking. I'm not available for recruitment, Susan replied with a small smile. Laura brought the discussion back to the main topic. Our terms are simple. All Draxid forces will leave our solar system immediately. Earth will be recognized as sovereign territory, off limits to future Draxid expansion. In return, we will return your surviving crews and damaged ships. The Draxid officers looked at each other in surprise. Vor leaned forward. You would return our ships, even the functioning ones. Yes, Laura confirmed. We have no interest in keeping them. Ambassador Zixtar couldn't remain silent any longer. This is unprecedented. Any other species would destroy the remaining ships and execute the commanders. Joe Collins shrugged. We're not interested in creating more enemies, just in establishing boundaries. Vor studied the humans with new interest. You are a strange species. You fight with unexpected skill, yet offer mercy when victory is yours. He turned to his officers and spoke briefly in the harsh Draxid language before addressing Laura again. We accept your terms with one addition. War Prince Crag must face justice for his failures, according to our laws. Laura looked at Susan, who nodded slightly. Agreed, provided his trial and punishment take place outside our solar system. After the meeting, Susan escorted Zixtar through the ship. The ambassador seemed deep in thought. Something on your mind, Ambassador? Susan asked. I am trying to understand your species, Zixtar admitted. You possess military technology far beyond what you revealed to the Confederation. You defeated the most feared empire in the galaxy. Yet you offer peace terms that many would consider too generous. Susan stopped at a viewport, looking out at the Earth shining blue and white against the blackness of space. Throughout our history, humans have learned some hard lessons about war and peace. One of the most important is that how you end a conflict often determines whether you'll face another one in the future. You believe showing mercy will prevent the Draxid from returning. I believe treating them with respect gives them a reason to consider us as something other than enemies, Susan replied. And if they do return anyway, we'll be ready. In another part of the ship, Joe Collins was speaking with Vor, explaining the quantum disruption technology that had disabled the Draxid fleet. It was actually inspired by studying your own communication systems, Joe explained. We found a vulnerability in how your quantum fields stabilize. Vor's scaled face showed what might have been respect. Our engineers believed such interference was impossible. That's the thing about humans, Joe said with a smile. We specialize in doing the impossible. Back on Earth, General Alan Carter reported to the United Earth Council on the status of the Draxid withdrawal. Every monitor in the council chamber showed images of damaged Draxid ships limping away from Earth, escorted by small groups of Earth vessels. The last of their fleet will leave our solar system within 24 hours, Alan reported. Our terms have been accepted and transmitted to the Draxid homeworld. One council member leaned forward. And if they return with a larger fleet? Alan's face remained calm. Then we'll be waiting. But intelligence suggests they may be more interested in diplomatic relations now. Apparently, a species that can defeat a Draxid invasion force is worth talking to. 3 months after the battle, Ambassador Zix Tar returned to Earth. This time, he brought 12 representatives from different species of the Galactic Confederation with him. Their sleek ship docked at the newly built space station orbiting Earth. Susan Moore, now promoted to Admiral, greeted the delegation alongside President Laura Diaz and General Alan Carter. Joe Collins stood nearby, looking uncomfortable in his formal uniform. "Welcome back to Earth, Ambassador," Susan said warmly. "I see you brought friends this time." Zix-Tar nodded, his blue face showing what humans had learned to recognize as a smile. "Admiral Moore, these are the senior representatives of the Confederation Council. They have come to extend a formal invitation to Earth." The main representative stepped forward. Tall and slender with golden skin and 4 arms, she bowed slightly. "I am High Counselor Ethera. Earth has done what no other world has achieved in 5,000 years. You have forced the Draxid Empire to sign a non-aggression pact." "We're happy to have peace," Laura replied diplomatically. "It is more than peace," Ethera continued. "Your handling of the Draxid invasion has altered the balance of power in our galaxy. Several previously hostile species are now seeking diplomatic relations with the Confederation." The delegation moved to the station's conference room, where a formal ceremony began. Susan noticed that all the alien representatives kept stealing glances at the humans, some with what appeared to be nervousness. Ethera stood and addressed the room. "The Confederation Council formally invites Earth to join our alliance as a full member world." Laura nodded graciously. "We accept your invitation and look forward to peaceful relations with all member species." "There is more," Ethera continued. "We also offer Earth a seat on the Security Council, a position typically reserved for species with centuries of interstellar presence." A murmur of surprise ran through the human delegation. This was unexpected. "May I ask why?" Alan inquired carefully. Another alien counselor, with features like a reptile, spoke up. "Your defensive capabilities and strategic thinking would be valuable in helping protect peaceful worlds from aggression." Joe leaned close to Susan and whispered, "I think what he means is they'd rather have us as allies than potential enemies." Susan hid her smile. She suspected he was right. After the ceremony, a reception was held with food and drinks from various worlds. Susan found Zix-Tar standing by a window, looking at Earth below. "You called our defense plan insane," she reminded him with a smile. "It was insane," Zix-Tar replied honestly. "Tactically brilliant, but completely insane by any reasonable standard. No other species would have conceived such a strategy, let alone executed it successfully." Susan laughed. "Well, Ambassador, you should know. Humanity has a long history of doing the insane when our backs are against the wall. That is precisely what makes your species so terrifying," Zix-Tar admitted, "and so valuable to the galaxy." He hesitated, then added, "There is something I should tell you. Since your victory, 4 previously hostile species have requested peace talks with the Confederation, and at least 6 others are rapidly improving their defenses. They're afraid we might visit them next." Susan asked, raising an eyebrow. "Wouldn't you be?" Zix-Tar countered. "A species that can defeat the Draxid using technology they didn't even know you possessed." Later, as the Earth delegation prepared to return to the planet, Joe found Susan on the observation deck. "I just got word from my team," he said excitedly. "We've decoded more of the Draxid database from their captured ships. There's information about dozens of inhabited worlds outside Confederation space." "Potential new friends?" Susan asked. "Or people who might need our help," Joe replied. The Draxid weren't exactly peaceful neighbors. 1 week later, the newly commissioned Earth ship Explorer prepared for its maiden voyage. Susan stood on the bridge as captain, with Joe serving as her science officer. Their mission? To establish contact with worlds beyond Confederation space. As the ship moved away from Earth, Susan gave the order to activate the new faster-than-light drive that Joe and his team had developed using principles learned from the Draxid and Confederation ships. "Course laid in, Admiral," her navigator reported. Susan smiled. "Let's go make some new friends." The explorer disappeared in a flash of light, carrying humanity's first diplomatic mission to the stars. The galaxy would never be the same.